Tonight we have Shannon with us. Shannon, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I know you've got a really busy schedule. You're packed, but we really appreciate you coming in tonight to share with all of the viewers how it is that a comedian can have a profitable lifestyle doing what you
about
love.
stand-up because I'd only seen it a little on TV, so I had all these props, and there's nothing wrong with props. But it was just like I had never done it before, and I'd never been to a comedy club because I was 18 and you couldn't get in. So I was very raw, but I learned quickly because there were so many great comedians in Houston.
And you knew that you wanted to be a comedian from what age?
6th grade, maybe?
Way back.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I wanted to be Steve Martin. That's who I loved. And then it developed into all these other different people.
And I've read an article about you. You gave an interview. You said that your dad was an engineer.
Yes.
And that he was always trying to get you like to go meet astronauts, and you were like, no, when most kids would have loved it.
It's like you get spoiled when you're around stuff to where I met all these astronauts and it meant nothing to me. It was like.
So were they supporting you as a comedian?
Yeah, but you had to get the degree, something to fall back on. Had to do that. So I went to U of H, which was fun.
Yeah?
No, it wasn't. I hated school. But
what did you study at U of H?
Marketing, the biggest mistake I've ever made. But
okay.
Should have studied writing or English or things like that, but I never did.
And after college, you took off to L.A.?
I went to New York for 2 years with Shannon McDonald. We were roommates from like 87 to 89.
Okay.
And then I moved to L.A. after that.
And in L.A., when did you start writing?
I wrote on the show. That's why I moved to L.A. There was a show called Comics Only, and it was on when the Comedy Channel just started, or Comedy Central it's called now. It was called the Comedy Channel at the time. There was two comedy channels, and they were fighting it out. And it was this comedian I met on the road once. And we weren't like best friends, but we saw each other and liked each other's act. His name was Paul Provenza, and he had the show. And he goes, hey, I'm looking for writers. So I submitted all this stuff, and he liked it, and I got my first job, which was $400 a week, baby, which I was making more money doing stand-up at the time.
When you say you submitted all this stuff, you submitted a resume and
writing
samples?
No, I submitted writing samples, and it was, he sent a tape of the show, and I wrote I got all these ideas for the show, the format they were doing. And I remember the thing that got me hired, it was this Brute commercial. It was this old commercial where it was the lady sitting around in the dude's shirt, and like he calls her at home, and she's still wearing his shirt after the night before, and she goes, I was just thinking about you, and it's like some Brute thing. So I wrote it where it was him and his co-host, who's another dude, so it's a fag joke, so it's always funny. So it's just a guy going, ooh, I'm just thinking about you. And so that's what, he loved that one of all of them.
Interesting.
Yeah, so.
So, here you are, you're now writing and you're still doing stand-up. And you mentioned you were on the road and you met Paul
Provenza.
And in that relationship, you were able to land a writing deal out of it.
Yeah, but it wasn't like we were even friends. He actually asked my friend, he goes, I'm looking for writers. And my buddy goes, you should get Shannon. And he goes, hey, I know him. Please have him type stuff up. So I typed all this stuff up, and I got a 3-week contract with a 3-week extension if I did good.
Yeah.
And it was like weird. And I was all scared when I'm like, I want a 12-week contract. No, 3 weeks. Okay.
And you took the 3-weeker.
And then also sign this release so we can read your stuff.
Sure.
And if we do the same stuff, it's just a coincidence.
Right.
I'm well worried, but it's like, yeah, do it.
So how did that lead into the next level? Because then you started
Okay,
writing.
here's what it is. I'm working on this show, and it's this low-end cable show, and then all these guys I'm working with are really established writers.
Okay.
And they get offered all these jobs that are, that don't, are a little bit below them, but they go, you know what, I can't do this, but I know this guy you should get. And from Comics Only, all my work has come from that one show.
Right?
It is the craziest thing.
So your network from the road actually propelled you into an opportunity to write.
No, definitely.
And your
then
talent
I did.
Obviously was there.
Yeah. No, you got to bring the goods.
Right.
But I did that, and I would meet people, and then they would go and then I started writing for all these MTV shows, and then from that I wrote on Comic Strip Live, and then I wrote on In Living Color, and then I wrote on John Leguizamo's show. He had a show, House of Buggin'. How did that not last? A show called House of Buggin'. And then it went from there to the Tonight Show, then to SNL, and I did Sinbad show Vibe, and then I did Magic Johnson show too for like 4 weeks.
So are you a member of a union?
Yeah, the Writers Guild.
The Writers
But
Guild.
I didn't join until In Living Color, so I did all those. That's the other thing that helped me. Those guys were in the union, and they couldn't do a lot of gigs that were on cable. So me being a scab, I could go in and do all that stuff.
And do the work.
Yeah. So
Cool.
that helped me, and it helped build a reputation on all these little shows.
Okay.
That finally got my thing.
Now the big enchilada here, Saturday Night Live. You applied just like everybody else, or you had a leg in?
No, I know Colin Quinn. Me and him shared an
Okay.
office at In Living Color. And also the first show I worked on was Comics Only, and Fred Wolf was there, who wrote on Saturday Night Live. Brilliant writer. And so those are the two people I knew to get my stuff read. But I had been read probably 3 years ago, 3 years before, got turned down.
By the Saturday Night Live crew?
Saturday Night Live.
The people that are looking at your resume?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the next year, I don't think I submitted. I submitted. The next year didn't get accepted. And then I submitted finally. The 4 years later, I got accepted.
And that's like in 99, 2000, right?
98, 99.
98, 99. Okay.
Yeah.
So here you are. Now you've been accepted. And another thing I've read about you in the newspaper is that apparently you're the only non-Ivy Leaguer in the crowd.
Not the only non-Ivy Leaguer. I'm the lone stand-up there now. But it's like it's either you come from the Groundlings in L.A., Second City in...
Chicago?
Yeah, Chicago.
Yeah.
Or all these Ivy League guys.
Uh-huh.
And then a Huckleberry from Texas.
A
somehow
Huckleberry.
Sneaks in.
So what do you think made you stand out? Don't just tell me the goods. There has to be something there that you were contributing.
No,
There's a lot
but-
of funny guys from the South.
Yeah, but no, I mean, it's, I think knowing Fred Wolf was a monster advantage to get the interview. And Colin Quinn. I mean, those were the big things that got me read. I mean, it is so weird how they hire people at that place. That place is different than any other place. Like, some people get hired, they'll go see a show at Second City, and they'll like someone as a performer, and they'll go, okay, you want to be a writer?
But I went to be a performer.
That
Now I'm
guy's
a
a
writer.
performer. And then they always, well, maybe you'll bump up. Nah, that never happens.
Did they ask you to be a writer?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, they're
But
not
did you
asking
go
me
in
to be
for
a performer.
Okay,
no,
you didn't go
look
in to
at
be a
me.
performer.
No.
Okay. All right, so now you're in.
Look at me. You saw that clip? I was storming around, yelling at people, going, ah.
Oh, okay. So here you are. Now you're on staff at Saturday Night Live. And you've been there for a couple of
7 years.
And apparently you've gotten a different title now. You're
I'm a writing
supervisor?
supervised by,
Okay.
which is a nice title.
Which means?
Nothing really, a little bit more money. They have too many head writers. They have 2 head writers, and I didn't get up there, but they had to promote me, or
I
they
see.
wanted to promote me. So, I mean, I helped pick the sketches and stuff,
Okay.
and I sometimes run the rewrite table, but not often. But, yeah, I mean, I'm an advisor. I help give notes. I help supervise sketches and stuff.
Does Saturday Night Live accept product or scripts or anything from outside of that group? No. Everything
I
is...
mean, you got to sign a release, and you should just sign it if you're ever thinking about doing something, and just sign a release, because it's you know, they're not going to rip you off, you know, especially Saturday Night Live, and some people might, but then you got to get read to get hired.
Yeah, it's a risk.
But
It's rolling
and
the
I
dice.
was always very reluctant, and I'm protective, and thinking this is the most original idea, and you know. I mean, there's a lot of ideas that people come across.
So, okay, now you're a stand-up comedian still to this day.
Still, I do stand up in New York twice a week.
Really? Where
Down
do
at
you
the
work?
Comedy Cellar.
Is that
to
right?
the Village. It's just, it sounds so romantic. I'm
The
down in the
Comedy
Village.
Cellar down in the Village, okay.
Yes.
And then I also read that you worked on Cheaper by the Dozen with Steve Martin.
No,
Yes.
I didn't.
I read
Wow,
that.
that's great. I didn't even know I did that.
You need another paycheck,
I
don't
do.
you? Well, I read that you were one of the
No.
writers on Cheaper by the Dozen.
No, I wish I was.
See, I did my research. It just
That's
wasn't
great.
accurate.
No, I like it. I'm excited. Let's spread that rumor. Oh, I remember Steve and Bonnie. They were so sweet. One day we were on the set at Craft Services, and no, I didn't work there.
No happy
That's
feet?
nice.
It's all
No.
over the internet, I
I've
promise.
never, you know what? That guy's been my hero, and I've never like talked to him at all.
It's all over the internet, T-Shawn. Check it out.
Oh.
It's all over there. All right, so I know you have some books out, because I have.
I've written 3.
Yeah, I have
Cough It Up.
Cough It Up, which was dedicated to your brother Charlie.
Yes, Charles.
He was also a comedy writer. And there's actually one of my favorite, this is adult humor, so if you have children in the room, you might want them to leave.